I thank the gentleman for yielding and for his leadership in organizing this special order. I thank him for allowing me to take a few moments to again take a look at what's been going on across the world and the troubling news that we have from abroad. And I rise tonight, Mr. Speaker, to call for a moratorium on the entry of refugees into the United States from Syria and all other countries that have been infiltrated by ISIS and other terrorist groups until security concerns can be adequately addressed. In the wake of the recent attacks in Paris, in Beirut, and on a Russian plane flying over the Sinai, my first and foremost concern is for the safety and security of my constituents in western Pennsylvania. To put it simply, the safety and security of the American people are non-negotiable. And right now, we simply do not have the mechanisms in place to ensure that the 10,000 Syrian refugees that the President would have come into this country over the next year and other refugees from terrorist-controlled areas are properly vetted. FBI Director James Comey has said as much, and I quote, "If someone has never made a ripple in the pond in Syria in a way that would get their identity or their interest reflected in our database, we can query our database until the cows come home, but there will be nothing to show up because we have no record of them." The Director of National Intelligence and the Secretary of Homeland Security have said the same. It is both reasonable and prudent to insist that we know exactly who these individuals are before they settle into our towns and cities. Currently, we have neither the capability nor the capacity to do this. The recent attacks have awakened us to the reality that Islamic State terrorists have the worst of intentions, not only for Christians and other religious minorities in their own region, but for the entire Western world. They are not, as the President has claimed, merely a setback. They are acts of war by a terrorist scourge against decency and humanity and freedom and everything that we as Americans stand for. It comes as no surprise, then, that ISIS has already stated it intends to attack the heart of the United States here in Washington, D.C., and it is not impossible that ISIS terrorists could enter the country by posing as Syrian refugees. In fact, reports indicate that a Syrian passport was found next to the body of 25-year-old Ahmad al-Mohammed, one of the suicide bombers in Paris. He was born in Idlib, a city in northwest Syria, and the Paris prosecutor's office said his fingerprints matched those of a person who traveled through Greece last month. So the security concerns that the American people are raising are not, as the President and others have suggested, without merit. They are completely legitimate, especially as the number of refugees is set to increase to 85,000 in 2016 and 100,000 in 2017, a significant increase from the average 70,000 per year over the past several years. The truth is that the American people are an incredibly compassionate and generous people. We have a rich history of assisting people in other nations around the globe when they are suffering from a humanitarian crisis, poverty, oppression, or war. Since September 11th, the United States has resettled 748,000 refugees from around the world. The American people have also assisted innocent Syrian refugees fleeing from violence in search of a better life, providing $4.5 billion in humanitarian aid since the start of the crisis in Syria to help them relocate in Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, Egypt, and other nations. While we desire to assist those in need who need help around the globe, we have a solemn duty to protect our citizens. The bottom line is we need to put the safety and security of Americans first. The solution I am proposing today is indefinite, but not necessarily permanent. And it is the only responsible thing to do under these circumstances. We need time to review and implement policies that will ensure that those who seek refuge in the United States are properly vetted. I also urge my colleagues in the Senate to act boldly and promptly to ensure the security of the American people, that the security concerns are addressed. I thank the gentleman from North Carolina.